Greetings. I'm George Boston Rhymes with the Get to Free Press, a social journalist who have published thousands of videos over these many years. I have been involved with civil and human rights since 1975. I am a retired military veteran during the Vietnam War era. I have been to such places as Ramstein, Germany, Karat, Thailand, Guam, Kadena Air Base in Okinawa. I've traveled to Suicide Cliff to view that historic landmark. I have traveled to Omaha, Nebraska, and filmed the new museum that's coming out there in Omaha on behalf of Malcolm X. And once that is completed, I do believe it will be a historic vacation place for many Americans. I have also traveled to Louisiana, to Bourbon Strip, and New Orleans, and it's a beautiful place. I have traveled and filmed in Rosewood with the Honorable Marvin Dunn, and we have worked down there, and Marvin Dunn has done a great work down there on his 5 acres of land, and I'll talk to you more about that in the upcoming months. I've also participated in the Week of Terror videos when Mary Turner was lynched here in Valdosta and Lowndes County, Georgia. I have worked with Dr. Mark George, who put together a historical marker on the site where Mary Turner was lynched. I have given some of my information to the movie that's just been released called Georgia Vote Suppression Hitman, Governor Brian P. Kemp. It's on the web by the name of Greg Palast, and the individual that traveled to Valdosta and then journeyed with me to Quitman, the old jail in Brooks County. We toured that jail. We took videos and pictures. I chose not to release any of my video footage until this movie called Vigilante was published. It has been published, and soon I will be releasing some of my footage that I recorded about that Brooks County jail. And in the particular film that I'm speaking of, I am in there, and they connected the dots between the Brooks County Jail, the Week of Terror in May of 1918, as well as my visit or my showing and touring Nigger Branch in Quitman, which is now called Pride Branch. And I talked to Mr. David Ambrose and told him about when I was a little boy. I remember the story behind how they would lynch blacks in front of the Brooks County Courthouse and bring their bodies out a westerly course from Quitman and throw them over in that branch there called Nigger Branch. And you will see some of my footage, a few words that I said in this particular video, Vigilante. I have been covering voter suppression, voter intimidation, voter impediments, and something very few people in America is speaking of. But I speak of it because I was called to approximately 18 to 20 cities about black, mostly females. Not only after voters vote and put these people into office under former Governor Nathan Deal and current Governor Brian P. Kemp. He was the Secretary of State back in back in the day. And I traveled from city to city. I'm not going to mention them here, but if you check the last video I just published on YouTube, Boston G.B.R., you will see my videos about the work that I have done. But as I close this video out, I just wanted you to know that my work didn't start yesterday. My work did not start with the covering of Brian P. Kemp and what he has done to black people. My civil rights work go way back. It did not start with the Quitman 10+2 or Olivia Coley Pearson or Homerville, Georgia, and the troubles they are having over there. It didn't start in Dawson with Christopher Wright, who was shot 6 times and left in his yard for dead. My work started at an early age, and I intend to continue my work because this particular work must be done during the last days of the reign of the wicked. And so I also want to mention to you as I close on this particular video, I highly recommend you going to see Vigilante. This documentary, this film, shows how Secretary of State Brian P. Kemp and his corps of investigators, including the head investigator by the name of Glenn Archie, who traveled to Brooks County in Quitman. People filed out formal complaint forms, but they were never followed up on. And please check this movie out. I'm doing this particular movie much like the one I did yesterday, and it's over an hour and 45 minutes, but this is not going to be that long. I'm getting ready to close this out. But I just want to do whatever I can to assist Mr. Greg Palast, Mr. Ambrose, Mr. Sheen, and others who did great work. I want to highlight them as I highlight Marvin Dunn for all the outstanding work he has done down in Rosewood, and he continued to do, as well as in other areas, because too often the news media will not cover the news in the black community. And this is why I started to get to Free Press. So Marvin Dunn, I want to thank you for all the hard work that you've done and for allowing Mr. John H. Robertson, my best friend, to travel down there and assist you in the work that you are doing to lead us out of the hellhole Caucasians have put us in, along with black folk who joined them in this work. Last but not least, I also want to talk about when I was in the military. I think in 1984, I published this book called Tribute to an Unknown Soldier. I hope to publish 20 books in my lifetime. Hopefully I have another one coming out with it in the next few months. And then I'm going to talk about this civil rights work that I have done. Oh, by the way, this book is called Tribute to an Unknown Soldier. I also have them in plaque form. I've sent them to about 6 presidents. I haven't sent Biden one yet. And I've received letters from all presidents that I sent it to except Donald Trump. And I sent one to Tyler Perry, and he didn't respond. That particular soldier, I guess they don't know him, they don't appreciate him, or maybe they just downright couldn't understand the writing itself. So once again, this is the Get To Free Press. I'm George Boston RHYNES, and I report what others ignore. Today is November the 16th, 2022. And I want you to know that here in Valdosta, if you Google on my YouTube channel, Boston G.B.R., you can see, you can learn about the Quitman 10+2, KJ death at Lowndes County High School, and my criminal trespass that they put me under as a freelance journalist on May the 25th, 2013 because they didn't want me apparently publishing what the children may say about that young man's death. Now I'm asking you all to sit back and watch the movie on my YouTube channel. Not this one, but there's another one about Georgia's vote suppression hitman by Greg Palast, Mr. David Ambrose, and others. I promote that movie, and I'm going to continue to promote it. I use some of the videos in the next movie about Vigilante film under fair use. I don't benefit from it. None of the videos that I've ever posted have I received one dime from my own personal use from the ones I produce. I have assisted many other people. And as you look behind me, the writing that come on the screen in the background may be backwards because I want you to know that the governor that you all voted into office is trying to send us back. That's right, send us back into a bygone era when black and white people suffered, bled, and died to get the rights that we have today. And the sad thing about it is that, can you imagine that we have black folk who turn thumb down on their own mother, father, sisters, brothers, and civil rights leaders who put it all on the line for you to get that right. And today, many of them, they will not vote out of ignorance. That's the only reason, out of ignorance. And if you are a religious person or spiritual person, as you ordained to be, let me close by saying this to you. If you don't appreciate the fact that people stood up and voted for you, involved in civil and human rights, if you don't appreciate that, and if that is why you don't vote, well, let me leave this with you. When you go to the restaurants, call the owner and tell them that you want to be served from the back door. Tell them that when you go to a grocery store, call the white owner and tell them that every time a white person get in line, that you want to go to the back of the line. Or when you put an application in to be a law enforcement officer and they tell you for whites only, because we didn't have any members of black race in law enforcement. So you just tell them, I don't want that job. I don't care if it's making $70,000 a year and I'm qualified, but I don't want that. Give me something cleaning your bathrooms or cutting your grass. If you don't vote, because all these accomplishments came through people who voted and who marched and protested and suffered and died, black and white and Jew and other Americans who cared enough to make things better for you. And this is why I love Mr. Greg Palast and Mr. Ambrose, Mr. Sheen and others for continuing the fight, continuing this struggle. That's right. And I'm sorry, y'all, but I'm filled up. That's why I can't stop talking. And I'm not speaking from a script. I want to also thank Dr. Mark George from Valdosta State University here in Valdosta, because we have had many white people to come out and assist us in trying to get rid of the last vestiges of the Jim Crow laws. And he has not betrayed us. He has not taken a seat on the sideline, but he have fought ever since the day I met this white Caucasian brother. And he bald-headed. When I first met him, I thought he was a thoroughbred skinhead, but I was far, far, far away from that. And we've had other white people who come in, they fought for a day, a month, or a week, but they're no longer around. But thank God for Mark George, and as well as Mr. Bob Elders and his wife. They are two white people here in Valdosta that I've known that started out with us who even black folk rejects, but they are still on the case. And although my beautiful brother, Reverend Floyd Rose, is up in age now, he don't get around like he used to, but I see the bright days when Reverend Rose used to be in the forefront. Oh, you may not see him too clearly, like you may not see me clearly either today. But I remember that man when he used to travel across the United States of America, talking to various churches, mosques, and synagogues among the Jews. And he always spoke a life-giving message, never resorted to bigotry, never resorted to hate or anything along those lines. And so I want to commend my beautiful brother, Minister Floyd E. Rose, up in age, no longer pastor of church. I want to thank God for a real civil rights person, spiritual person, dear friend, John H. Robinson. I often try my best to go back and talk about the people in my life that have made an impact. A person who may not be recognized by those in the clique and among the slicks. But I want to thank God for allowing me to be in this mix before and after 6. And I tell you, I have met some beautiful people in this lifetime. And I want you to know, I made friends for life, both black and white. And I'm hoping to meet Greg Palast because he is a beautiful brother. And I know that by the film that he produced. The Quitman 10+2 is here playing. This is Diana Thomas, PhD. Nancy Dennett, PhD. Miss Gladys Lee, a retired school teacher, was my teacher in school. She's the only teacher that I know that stands up for civil and human rights. And the other people, Commissioner Maxwell, just outstanding people that were arrested during the week of terror in Brooks and Lowndes County, in Brooks County, not Lowndes County. This was done in Brooks County. And these are some of the best, most respected people in Brooks County. And this is what Governor Nathan Deal did. He went and he arrested Dr. Nancy Dennett, PhD, outstanding human being. They went through and terrorized that little town and that county to keep blacks silent. This is the funeral of Latasha Head. Some people are not talking about her, but I filmed her back in the day because she died. She died. And I just had to include her in the film that you can find on my YouTube channel. And at this juncture, I want to say to you that Latasha Head is just one of the people that died. There are other people that have died under this Georgia white pattern and practice, as I call it, to stop black from voting through voter suppression, voter intimidation, voter impediments. And then after black folk and white right people vote blacks into office, then they attack them. And this is something I've been trying to get Stacey Abrams to talk about, but I haven't been successful yet. I've tried to get and meet with Senator Warnock when he was here in Lowndes County at a press conference, and he only interviewed one person. And we who were in the media, we were gravely disappointed at him. And I'm gonna speak the truth. I was gravely disappointed. I watched TV station walk away because he said he was gonna only do an interview for one person. The rest of us had to leave. I don't approve of that. And this is one of the reasons in the last 12 years, I have seen black people said they were not gonna vote for the Democratic Party because when they have trouble in these rural areas or within the city and county governments, they call on local Democratic representatives and Republicans, and they do not respond to the needs of the black community. I was in Sylvester, Georgia. They had a movement out of Columbus. Those black folk were so upset that the Democratic Party and some of your civil rights organizations refused to come and assist black voters who was being terrorized by these wicked white folk and the wicked black folk who joined them as little black Sambos and little Aunt Janes who sit on these boards in black skin but a white heart and unfairness. Maybe because they are scared as hell. I don't know. But I will say this to you, and this is my closing. God did not give us the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. And this is why I say to all of you, do not hate on white folk like they hate on you, because not all white folk are in Satan's pulpit. Let me say it again. Not all white folk are in Satan's pulpit. Some of them are sitting where they need to sit. And as my grandma taught me as a child, don't hate white folk and don't hate the wicked, for we always gonna have wicked among us, black and white. But my grandmama, and I thank her for it, she gave me something that I can chew on even today. And I got good white friends right here today. I will trust some of my white friends right here today far more than I probably would trust you, Skip, you, and you. That's right. And so my grandma said, white people was fighting for me before I knew what the fight was all about. That's right. White people was fighting for me before I knew what the fight was all about. So Greg Palast, Mr. Ambrose, and others, we thank you for all the work that you have done. I was amazed, Mr. Palast, when I watched your videos and the power of your language and your courage. And this is why I use your video fair use, trying to point it so people can watch that film about Brian P. Kemp and his ancestors, who was of very little value to people of a darker hue, and the truth speaks for itself. Y'all have a nice day. May God bless you. As usual, I wanted this to be short, but I told y'all I've been pregnant for a long time, and I can't give birth, so all I can do is keep giving out the sperm of knowledge and hope that it impregnate the borders of your mind. Again, I'm George Boston Ryan with the Get To Free Press, a freelance journalist who YouTube and Facebook will not allow me to post but to 8 people at a time. They don't give me the counts, and you all the one told me that because I didn't know it. They'll show that I only have 3 or 12 views on videos, and we all know that's a lie. Y'all call me and you tell me that. But I'm saying to you, don't blame the wicked. They don't want nobody to know that you all are listening to me. And let's keep it that way. You just keep sharing it through your email friends, keep sharing it on your Facebook page. And although the views don't change, we just hope that truth will change their mind. Because St. John 8:32 says, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set and make you free. Let me let you listen to a little bit of what this girl is saying.
It's not because we did something wrong, we just want something, we want to change. We want something better for our kids. Because Grace County is made.
Let me back this up before I. Okay, I'm gonna back this up and I'm gonna move out the way, and we're gonna let her name is Brenda Mons. Brenda Mons. We're gonna let her talk as she addressed the issue of what Brian P. Kemp, the now governor that y'all voted back in office, listen and see what he put this lady to through as she expresses herself. Then I'm gonna close this out.
Because we want someone who loves our children, who want to make a difference in our community. Right. It's not because we did something wrong, we just want something, we want to change. We want something better for our kids. Because Prince County is made up of black kids. So who is best to go in our school system to teach our children and let them know that you can be somebody. You can be a bomber. You can be a doctor. You can be a lawyer. You can be the best that you know how to be. You don't have to go to McDonald's and work. All right. You don't have to go to Center Equipment and dig their ditches. You can be the best that you can be. That's right. So why are you all making us feel like we are criminals? Because we want the best for our children. I'm sorry, y'all, but I get very emotional. I don't want to think about what they did to us. If I don't talk about it, it's like a dream. But when I talk about it, in reality, I ain't never been in jail. I ain't never had handcuffs in my arms. And that hurts. That hurts. You don't realize they stand by looking at us. They don't realize how this hurt us. Girls are going to jail with handcuffs on us. And you think like, people know us. People know who we are. It's like they're thinking we are criminals. Yeah. It's hard, y'all. It's hard. It's hard. People looking at you like they did something wrong when you know you did something wrong. I'm sorry. Thank y'all. All right. I'm going to go again here with us. I just think that God, this is really long, y'all. Because He's for us and we really need y'all. We ain't got anything wrong. All we want to make a difference in our community. That's all we want. That's all we want.
Will they start calling you a nigger?
Anyway, that's what we're waiting. A few more
Will they call you a nigger? An outside agitator? Et cetera, et cetera.
Rock and roll.
Let's rock and roll.
Congratulations to everybody. Thank y'all for doing y'all's part and coming out and voting. So, paper ballots. We had, don't put my face on there. We had, let's go to mayor. Carver, 9. Coley, 25. Polk, 93. Ward 1, Perry, 1. Taylor, 18. Douglas, 2. Brockington, Clark Brockington, 20. Durham, 11. Johnson, 1. 3, Olivia Pearson. 16, there was 29 write-ins. Gowan, 4. McNeil, 7. Moore, 5. Yes, 114. No, 5. Douglas. Carver. Yes. Carver, 204. Coley, 181. Polk, 583. Ward 1, Perry, 48. Taylor, 103. Ward 2, Clark Brockington, 49. Durham, 109. Johnson, 11. Miss Libby Pearson, and I've said your name different every time, I do believe. 111. There was 60 write-ins. Do I know who those write-ins are for at this moment? No. So, there was 32 write-ins for Carla Grady on paper ballots. So, I did not add any of those up in my head. So, if somebody's added them up, Robert, Kristen, Miss Libby,
32,
Mike,
32 write-ins on
What
paper
you add,
ballot.
what are you adding?
Oh, yeah,
like for each candidate.
all right, cause you called out, before you called out.
Misty,
20.
if you don't know all of them is for her that's voting, so how can you get an accurate count?
I'm not talking about the write-ins.
Okay.
I'm talking about for the candidates
Okay.
that's on the ballot.
So 29 write-ins that you mentioned previously came from where?
Paper, right?
29. Yes, paper ballots.
And so where the 32 comes from?
The absentee ballots.
How does that happen?
Cause y'all counted 32 over here for
Yeah.
Carla. So.
And there's 32 108s. No. That don't make sense.
Thank you.
Cause this paper has got 29.
That's right, that's what you called out.
And y'all said 32, cause I can read just well.
Yeah, I mean, we got it on a piece of paper signed that it's 32. I say we put them back through the machine and run them again. Y'all agree?
I agree.
Can you say the totals again, for Ward, for Ward 3?
For what?
3.
But that's what they
All right, do this. Go through all ballots, and y'all got all the ballots for 108 Douglas out, right? Okay, how many 108 Douglas ballots do we have that's been received? 108 is the combo number.
Combo.
Yeah, that's what I was,
Ward 3.
yeah, that's the card style down at the bottom.
Right.
I don't call them, when it's a ballot, I don't call them by ward, or I call it by combo,
Combo.
or card style.
Yeah, I don't know.
Are you wanting the advance vote?
We got to find out.
No, I'm just installing out, the last count installing out. I just wanted those.
That's what we're fixing to try to find out.
Yeah. So, Miss, you mentioned paper one time, and then you mentioned absentee.
Right.
So,
That's what we're fixing, that's what we're trying to find out.
okay, because they're basically the same thing,
Right.
supposed to be.
Right, that's why I'm saying they're gonna count how many paper ballots, absentee ballots by mail, which is the same thing.
What's the total number of absentee ballots? What's the total number of absentee ballots?
Not for Ward 3.
For Ward
Total.
3.
Oh, for, that's what they're counting. They're pulling all the 108s right now.
Okay.
Let's just hold on a second, and then we'll get back.
Right.
Learning more about the investigation into the alleged voting machine breach in Coffee County. This probe also centers around the 2020 election. This morning, a newly released subpoena is raising questions about its focus. So far, the state issued at least one subpoena. It's for Marilyn Marks, a whistleblower. Now, she's the founder of the Coalition for Good Governance. Mark says that she has some questions about the subpoena she received Monday night. She's trying to figure out if the move is actually investigating the breach or if it's targeting her instead. The Secretary of State's office said months ago it was investigating unauthorized access to the state's Dominion voting system in Coffee County. And they say the investigation is serious. Investigators want to know what Marks knows about the incident.
So let's turn the camera around and wait and see if we can get these absentees and write-in votes and what have you squared away. And we'll come back. We'll come back in just a second.
Miss Chairman of the Board, Miss Ernestine, as Chairman of the Board, what is Miss Misty keep going in the back for? No, you're the Chairman, you don't know? But do you know right now?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
The GMs, which collects all the data from all the precincts, is in a room, locked in room way yonder. That's where it's required to be. She's in there running those cards out of the machines through that GM system.
But we're not quite ready for the card reports yet. We're still trying to get the determination of the absentee ballot. I got this. Go. My children. Y'all say my children. Cheryl, go get Cheryl, go get our children.
Go around that side, because he ain't no them back over there.
Let Cheryl go get our kids.
Bye, y'all.
Eric,
Go.
Eric, you go. What they running out for? What they running out like it's something going on?
Something happened outside. A bunch of people took off running outside. So something's happened outside.
What's going on? I don't know. I ain't going to get back.
about to spill over like this.
I have to print ballots over there.
Still trying to sort out.
Anytime there's a ballot that has a discrepancy on it, we have to transfer it to a blank ballot.
The write-in votes and total number of write-in votes compared to those write-in votes.
Like those three.
Figure that out. While
We're not gonna have a question and answer session. Just come here, we gonna come do our job.
Oh, I'm sorry, you are gonna answer questions too.
I think she
yes.
After she finished, she will.
Okay.
But now she won't.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, all right, well, somebody needs to stay back there.
Stay back where?
Back there, because I don't know why she keeps running back there.
This is the county. I'm in charge of this. So
Well,
you just hold on and she get
No,
back.
no, you might be in charge, Mr. Pout, but I tell you what, it's a lot of discrepancies going on.
Ma'am, I don't care.
I know you don't, because it seems to be in your
She will
favor.
answer you when she finish, okay? That's all I can say.
But no, he talking about he don't care. He a county commissioner and he don't care.
Miss Pearson, hold your peace.
You hold yours.
You're fixing to leave
You
her
hold
because
yours.
I'm gonna dismiss you.
Hold
You
yours.
understand me?
You hold yours.
I'm a board member and you gonna listen to me.
And I got freedom of speech.
You can, but not in this event.
Listen, all that attitude when the Secretary of State get here, all that shit will be adjusted. Because they coming. Be calm now.
Newly released video shows a Republican county official escorting people inside a South Georgia election office on the same day that county's election system was allegedly breached. The video raises a number of questions, including why they allegedly copied the voting software and whether it will compromise the election 8 weeks from today. 11 Live's Doug Richards has more on why this matters.
Well, Jennifer, for about as long as there has been computerized voting, critics have said that it's vulnerable to hackers. This video seems to show evidence of how that can happen. The video shows a local Republican leader named Kathy Latham at the Coffee County, Georgia election office, holding open the door and allowing in several people who stayed inside for hours with access to the county's computerized voting system.
And they just let them in. Said, come on in. And they copied everything. And then after they copied everything, they took it back and they put it onto the internet for other people to make copies of.
Bruce Brown represents plaintiffs who have for the last 4 years challenged the state's Dominion election computers in court, arguing along with numerous tech experts that computerized election systems are vulnerable to hackers. And Brown says this video shows the hackers who made images of Coffee County's system in January 2021. Folks, he says, were likely hired by Trump attorney Sidney Powell. Though the 2020 election is settled, Brown says the hack in Coffee County threatens Georgia's upcoming election.
People got in there and made forensic copies of the entire suite of election software that is used statewide. And so it's a big concern because now copies of that software have been made available to any number of people anywhere in the world.
Brown says the state can fix this because state law allows the state to sideline computerized voting and switch to hand-marked paper ballots for this coming election. The state officials have fought to keep computerized voting, which the state paid hundreds of millions of dollars to acquire, and which they say voters like using. State officials have told us they are investigating, though no comment from them today. J-Bell.
Doug, thank you.
votes, Rodney Johnson 28 votes.
The numbers that, may I have your attention, please?
Hang on just a
May
second.
I have your attention, please? The numbers that has been given out already are unofficial. There will be no more numbers given out tonight. No more. Wow.
All right, I've never seen that happen.
I imagine you have us, Mr. Preston.
Well, I guess the flames ain't going to wait.
No more numbers will be called out. However, I'm quite sure the numbers will be made available to us once they are tallied. But again,
What was an alleged fake elector in Georgia doing with 2 Trump operatives at a county election office the same day voting systems were breached? Here's video of former GOP chairwoman of Coffee County, Kathy Latham, escorting Scott Hall and Paul Maggio into the Coffee County Elections Office on January 7th, 2021. Latham is being investigated for posing as a fake elector for Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Hall and Maggio have admitted that they gained access to a voting machine. They say they did it because Donald Trump's lawyer, Sidney Powell, asked them to. Joining me now from outside of the federal courthouse in Atlanta is NBC's Blaine Alexander. So we have this video, Blaine. Explain to us what it means and the issues being raised.
So let me just kind of set the scene for you here, Katie. This is all taking place in Coffee County, which is a rural county here in Georgia, about 200 miles to the south of Atlanta, where I am right now. But this is something that's also being investigated by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and also the Georgia Secretary of State's office. So that kind of lays the foundation, and what they're looking into is an alleged data breach into the election system. So what this video does, this video that's come to light today, what this video does is it shows really just kind of the extent to which there was coordination in these efforts and actions taken to try and overturn the election results in Georgia. You talked about Kathy Latham. She, at the time, was a chairperson of Coffee County GOP, also one of the 16 fake electors. Bringing it back here to Atlanta, that, of course, we know that she is a target of the Fulton County investigation and was subpoenaed to testify, but it shows that she's essentially giving access to these data specialists who were hired by Sidney Powell, of course, is a Trump attorney. Now, we reached out to Latham's attorney. We didn't hear back, but he told the Washington Post that Kathy Latham would never knowingly try to interfere in an election. But again, this video certainly kind of shows a very strong kind of coordinated effort to overturn the election.
Larry. Yeah, there are people, police officers coming to the room. We've heard a tense exchange between Vigilante and Pearson, also election board member here, Cheney, and county commissioner, Austin Palast. Saw that here and it's getting close to 9 o'clock. Let's go catch all the election. Call it again. And if they're not getting us any done, we'll hang around for as long as we can. But again, I'm not planning on calling. I don't think we'll We can announce it. We'll see what happens. So again, that's where we stand right now. It looks like, in the city, I mean, we got a project, in the city, we can go ahead and call all of the elections, except for the Port Reed City Commission election. It's still at the live on Facebook. We'll have to see how that plays out. Hopefully we'll know tonight, but that's where we are. How many registered voters in the city? Approximately 7,400, and we've got 2,206.
The Secretary of State's office is facing criticism. It was too quick to dismiss claims of voter security breach, as the new video surfaces this week.
In an interview you will only see here on 11 Alive, Brad Raffensperger tells our Doug Richards the investigation was stalled by local officials trying to cover it up.
The Georgia Secretary of State says his office got its first tip into the breach in Coffee County just weeks after it happened. But it took investigators months to get to the bottom of it.
When our investigators went down there, she's now the former election director, she did not provide truthful statements to us.
At that time, investigators had not seen the surveillance video of Coffee County officials allowing into the secure election office operatives connected to former Donald Trump attorney Sidney Powell, allowing them to access the county's computerized election equipment.
Did not speak truthfully, and so we were not aware of some of these components until a little bit later. Then when their new election director had been hired, that's when we found out that her passwords had been shared with an outside company.
The timeline starts in South Georgia the day after the Capitol riot in Washington in 2021, when a group of Trump supporters entered the Coffee County office and accessed software and data. The officials who let them in were fired 6 weeks later. That May, one of their replacements contacted the Secretary of State's office to raise concerns about a possible breach. In June, the Secretary of State's office seized the county's election servers. Then 10 months later, Gabriel Sterling with the Secretary of State's office said the claims of a breach had been debunked.
There was people saying, we went to Coffee County, we imaged everything. There's no evidence of any of that. It didn't happen.
But 4 months later, the GBI opened a criminal investigation. Only within the last few weeks has the video publicly surfaced.
And so the people will be prosecuted for that, is my hope.
I think the question is, did the Secretary of State's office take the Coffee County issue seriously? And if you had, wouldn't you have been able to get this information months ago?
Well, we were provided information, and now it appears to be apparent that these people were not speaking truthfully to our investigators.
If a bad actor wanted to undermine the upcoming election, wouldn't they do something exactly like they did?
They would attempt to do that, but you have to also understand, if there's any question of what happens with a ballot marking device, you'll see it immediately.
Raffensperger says that voters checking their printouts after they vote on the Dominion voting machines can double check whether there was a security breach on their particular ballot. Raffensperger says he is unwilling to go to hand-marked paper ballots this fall. At the Capitol, Doug Richards, 11 Alive News.
We are going to move
Yes, Lord.
He's not allowed.
Who not allowed?
I'm gonna check to see, are you allowed back here?
Preston back here.
It don't make any difference. I'm gonna see you. She allowed back here?
He's not allowed.
Who not allowed?
I'm gonna check to see, are you allowed back here?
Preston back here.
It don't make any difference. I'm gonna see you. Where this person goes, he's about to come with Mr. Preston.
That blue stuff's in there, that
Yeah,
be in there.
yeah, that, y'all need to come out here to the foyer.
Yeah, cause that, tell Robert.
Mr. Preston.
Robert, y'all.
Need to come out here.
No, they take care of me.
No.
We're gonna let him
They
stay.
can go out here.
Okay.
She allowed back here?
He's not allowed.
Who not allowed?
I'm gonna check to see, are you allowed back here?
Preston back here.
It don't make any difference. I'm gonna see you. Where this person goes, he's about to come with Mr. Preston.
That blue stuff's in there, that
Yeah,
be in there.
yeah, that, y'all need to come out here to the foyer.
Yeah, cause that, tell Robert.
Mr. Preston.
Robert, y'all.
Need to come out here.
No, they take care of me.
No.
We're gonna let him
They
stay.
can go out here.
He can come out here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And a small Georgia county is now making big news tonight as new developments in its election data breach is coming to light.
11 Alive has now confirmed the GBI is opening a criminal investigation into an elections data breach in Coffee County after subpoenaed documents were released. Jeff Hullinger joining us now with where the case stands and the possible charges those involved could face here, Jeff.
According to reports from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the AJC, the documents say one of former President Trump's attorneys paid $26,000 to an Atlanta-based tech company, Sullivan Strickland, to access voting information from machines in Coffee County. According to reports, Coffee County was targeted by President Trump's team, and his attorneys were given access to local election equipment by county officials there. The subpoena says the attorneys who visited Coffee County were also involved in election tampering in Michigan and Nevada, two other battleground states just like Georgia. 11 Alive legal analyst Paige Pate breaks down the potential consequences the attorneys, the tech company, and possibly, just possibly, Coffee County election officials could be facing.
I think the most relevant potential crime would be removal of election information without proper authority during the course of the election process. There are several crimes in Georgia that deal with getting into the guts of these electronic voting machines and removing them or copying them or altering them in any way. And that punishment could be as low as a misdemeanor, or it can be a felony offense.
So the newly released subpoenas are sparking up conversations of 2020 alleged voter fraud once again. Here we go. Coming up tonight on 11 Alive News at 6, we hear from the Secretary of State's office and what this could mean for future Georgia elections. And we're right around the corner to November.
Under one request.
Yes.
Do not put me on that camera. Under one request.
Yes.
Do not put me on that camera.
Two months after the 2020 election, a team of computer experts went down to Coffee County and visited the county elections office to copy software and data from elections equipment. The Secretary of State's office in Georgia has called this an alleged unauthorized access of elections equipment. In the video footage from a security camera outside the Coffee County Elections Office, we see this team of computer experts arriving at the Coffee County Elections Office on January 7th, 2021. And we see them being welcomed by Kathy Latham, who at the time was the chair of the Coffee County Republican Party. We see in the video Doug Logan and Jeff Lenberg arriving at the Coffee County Elections Office. Doug Logan was a founder of Cyber Ninjas, which had been involved in an ultimately discredited audit of the election results in Arizona. Both men were involved in efforts to challenge the results of the 2020 presidential election. We see Doug Logan and Jeff Lenberg arriving around 4 p.m. on January 18th, 2021, and that was Martin Luther King Day. The Coffee County Elections Office was actually closed at the time, and the woman who was the elections director at the time for the county, Misty Hampton, let the two of them in around 4 p.m. and they stayed there until around 8 p.m. The video also shows that the two of them returned the next day, and it appears as if they were there for about 9 hours that day. This alleged breach of election equipment in Coffee County has caught the eye of Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis, who is currently investigating whether former President Donald Trump and his allies illegally tried to influence the election in Georgia. Emails and other records have shown that Sidney Powell and other lawyers who were allied with President Trump helped arrange for the team of computer experts to travel to Coffee County on January 7th, 2021. The Secretary of State's office has said that they opened an investigation into this alleged breach in mid-March. Last month, they asked the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to assist in that investigation.
Under one request.
Yes.
Do not put me on that camera.
Okay.
Under one request.
Yes.
Do not put me on that camera.
Okay.
We are going to move.
Yes, Lord.
He's not allowed.
Who not allowed?
I'm gonna check to see, are you allowed back here?
Preston back here.
It don't make any difference. I'm gonna see. Where this person go? He's about to come with Mr. Preston.
That blue stuff's in there, that
Yeah,
be in there.
yeah, that, y'all need to come out here to the
Yeah.
foyer.
Yeah, 'cause that, yeah, tell Robert.
Mr. President.
Robert, y'all.
They take care of me.
No.
We're gonna let him
They
stay
can go
right
out here.
He can come out here
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody
Under
have to go
one-
out there.
under one request.
Yes.
Do not put me on that camera,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
If you'll pause that.
I'm asked to pause it, and I'm following her instructions.
Okay.
She also said she didn't want to be recorded. I do not know about that, but I'm going to try my best not to record her either. If you notice, Preston was in there. I was not permitted, and I followed him because I'm a press just like he is, and there should be no favoritism. It should be equal and just. I don't see where she asked Preston not to record her, but we do this all the time, and I'm accustomed to it.
Newly obtained video to CNN shows a former Georgia Republican county official escorting two operatives hired by an attorney for former President Trump into the county's election offices on the same day a voting system there was illegally breached. Drew Griffin has the details. Drew.
Breaches of these voting machines, guys, in swing states are under investigation across the country. This one happened in Coffee County, Georgia, rural county. CNN obtained surveillance video at one of the offices where the voting machines were breached, and all this at the behest of one of Donald Trump's attorneys. I want to show you right now. This is Kathy Latham we're showing you. She's the former chairwoman of Coffee County GOP. Already under investigation, this woman is, for posing as one of those fake electors who signed documents that declared Donald Trump was the winner of the 2020 election. Latham can be seen here escorting a team of pro-Trump operatives into the Coffee County Elections Office, including an IT specialist who was working with Trump attorney Sidney Powell. This all happens on the same day the voting system in that office was illegally breached. January 7th, 2021, the day after the attack on the U.S. Capitol. Text messages, emails, and witness testimony from a civil lawsuit against Georgia election officials have connected Latham, that woman, to the plan to give the group access to the elections office. About a week before this voting machine breach, that same woman, Latham, testified before the Georgia State Legislature, along with Rudy Giuliani, talking all about voter machine irregularities in Coffee County. Latham's attorney told CNN in a statement that Ms. Latham has not acted improperly or illegally, and Ms. Latham did not authorize or participate in ballot scanning efforts, computer imaging, or any similar activity. The IT specialist firm says it had no reason to believe he was doing anything wrong either. One important note, Coffee County, where this happened, is a Republican stronghold. Donald Trump won this county with 70% of the vote, but you can see from that video there that the Trump-connected team wanted to and was able to get access to that election office.
And as you said, Drew, this isn't the only place this kind of thing is happening.
This was happening in breaches of voting machines in several other states, and at least one of the breaches, Brianna, in Michigan, we can connect to what happened in Georgia. It all points to this plan to try to overturn the results of the 2020 election. But look at all the things they've done, all the digging they've done, all the voting machines they've tried to penetrate. None of it has shown any of this evidence that they think exists out there, you know, that this was somewhat of an illegitimate election. Joe Biden won this election, and they just could not accept that.
So, Drew, what's going on with the investigation into all of this?
Well, there are various state investigations. The Michigan Secretary of State told me last week that she's handed over her state's evidence to the Department of Justice. They have not heard back. It's an incredible, intricate story. You know, Zach Cohen and Jason Morris, two of our crack investigative reporters in D.C., have just posted a big story online with a lot more details on this. Incredible stuff. If you want to follow along, or, guys, read about it in the history books in like 10 years from now.
Yeah, follow along now. You'll be well prepared for when you read it in the history books. Drew Griffin, terrific reporting. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Joining me now, CNN political analyst and senior political correspondent of the New York Times, Maggie Haberman, and CNN legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Jennifer Rogers. There's a lot in there, Drew. First of all, we're talking about January 7th. We're talking about the day after the insurrection. This is still going on, even after everything that happened on January 6th.
It fits with other pieces that we know, John, which is that John Eastman, the lawyer who was the architect of this idea that Mike Pence could unilaterally reject the Electoral College votes on January 6th, continued pressing in Georgia, actually. He wanted to continue investigating in Georgia. So it's not surprising that there are other people who shared his views who were continuing, but the detail of this is really what's stunning. And I have to say, this is one of the first times that I think there has been a clear roadmap presented in one of these stories about machines being either a breach or something tampered with potentially, where you can connect the dots between players across the spectrum in this entire issue, and it's a fascinating report.
It is, and I have to say more to come, I am sure. So, Jen, I want to focus on the ruling from Judge Eileen Cannon in Florida, the district judge, saying that there will be a special master dealing with the documents that were seized at Mar-a-Lago, and there will be a pause.
We are going to move.
Yes, Lord.
He's not allowed.
Who not allowed?
I'm gonna check to see, are you allowed back here?
Preston back here.
It don't make any difference. I'm gonna see. Where's this person go? He's allowed to come with Mr. Preston.
That blue stuff's in there, that wouldn't
Yeah,
be in there.
yeah, that, y'all need to come out here to the
Yeah.
foyer.
Yeah, cause that, yeah, tell Robert.
Mr. Preston.
Robert, y'all.
Need to come out here.
They take care of me.
No.
We gonna let him
They
stay
can go
there?
out here.
He can come out here
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody
Under
have to go
one-
out there.
under one request.
Yes.
Do not put me on that camera,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
If you'll pause that.
I'm asked to pause it, and I'm following her instructions.
Okay.
She also said she didn't want to be recorded. I do not know about that, but I'm going to try my best not to record her either. If you notice, Preston was in there. I was not permitted, and I followed him because I'm a press just like he is, and there should be no favoritism. It should be equal and just. I don't see where she asked Preston not to record her, but we do this all the time, and I'm a
Hello, I'm Martin Sheen, and you are about to see a horror movie. It's about how bloodthirsty vampires have sunk their fangs into our democracy through voter suppression. It's called Vigilante, and it follows investigative reporter Greg Palast as he exposes how Georgia Governor Kemp and his posse have succeeded in blocking the right to vote of more than 250,000 American citizens of color. Suppressing the right to vote is not limited to Georgia by any means. It's spread to Arizona and Texas and Michigan, and it's coming to a state near you. And so is this film. It took a great deal of courage for Greg Palast to expose voter suppression, and you can join this heroic effort by going to SaveMyVote2022.org. And remember, one heart with courage is a majority. Thank you.
Are you removing black voters from the voter rolls just so you can win this election? So you didn't call him, but you challenged his right to vote or have his ballot challenged? No ballot. Mr. Chairman, you have been challenged. Is this an attempt to remove a lot of Democrats, black people from voting?
Get out of my house now!
Law enforcement is going to their houses and places of employment and making people afraid to go out and exercise their rights.
And today to come out and not be able to vote, it bothers me to my core.
My life is on the line and I could go to prison. If I just commit suicide, this will be over.
Stop voter fraud.
They raided a voter registration office and tried to send all of these college kids to jail.
Call our voter fraud hotline. Tonight, Governor Kemp has signed a controversial election bill. He signed Senate Bill 202.
If you go back to the bill signing, you will see Governor Kemp sitting under a painting of a plantation.
Time to do something. If we don't get it back in November.
Brian Kemp is preparing to ban books.
Are you removing black voters from the voter rolls just so you can win this election?
How you doing, folks? Andy Prady here with the 11 Alive Investigators. Let me tell you about a story that is starting to develop that we are working on right now. You may have heard about claims of voter suppression in Georgia and the Secretary of State's office getting sued for putting voter registrations on hold. Well, let me tell you about details about voter intimidation you may not have heard yet. I bet you haven't heard yet. It involves a grandmother in Georgia who almost went to prison for assisting a voter.
I know you before you started.
We go back a long way. We were next door neighbors.
She's not on this year's ballot, but it's easy to see why Olivia Coley Pearson has served 19 years on Douglas City Council, unopposed.
So we all go way back.
She knows her constituents.
Thank you, sweetie.
While popular in her district, Coley Pearson's toughest political battle happened last year. Not on city council.
You committed false swearing.
No, sir.
But in a Coffee County courtroom facing felony charges. It started with a complaint filed with the Georgia Secretary of State's office. The claim, illegally assisting voters in 2012. Listen to an audio recording between a state investigator and a voter Coley Pearson helped.
Do you know why Miss Pearson signed the back of the voter certificate that she was assisting you?
Because I didn't know what to do, what I ought to do.
Was that the first time using the machine?
Yeah, that was my first time.
At the end there where you have to push the button to cast your ballot, who pushed that?
Me.
And that's what happened. That's what I was criminally charged for in terms of assisting a voter.
Were you on the ballot?
No.
Here we go again.
Reverend Rudolph Porter is a local pastor.
If she could have gone to prison for that, I guarantee you could serve all the hot dogs, the hamburgers, the Coca-Colas in the world. People wouldn't have gone to the polls ever again in this county if she would have been found guilty.
They would have been that afraid to go.
Absolutely. In fact, I would have started voting absentee.
How's it going?
Mark Loudon Brown is an attorney for the Southern Center for Human Rights and represented Coley Pearson.
I don't know what the motive was, but it certainly, as an outsider, makes you think they're trying to send a message to people of color.
You good, David?
I'm good. All right.
I'm just going to have you say your name and your title for me, and we're going to go down the line.
I am Pearson Senior, President of County Branch of University.
Reverend Rudolph Porter, pastor of Shallow Missionary Baptist Church, Tifton, Georgia.
George Ross around to get to the place.
So we're here today to talk about Ms. Pearson's case where she was found not guilty. But before she was not found guilty, she went through a lot. When you first heard of the charges, what was your response? And by the way, we're going to go all throughout the line. I'm just going to look at you, and then we'll go down the line, if that's okay. So when you first found out about her charges, and you learned it specifically what she was charged with, what was your response?
Well, her being charged with something didn't surprise me. You want to tell you why?
Why?
Because she's outspoken. One of the most outspoken commissioners in this town. She's a people person. When they got a problem, they seek her out. That's the first thing. And the other thing is, if they get rid of Olivia Coley Pearson and get somebody else in that seat, I think somebody have more control of the seat. And that's what they want.
I said, here we go again. Ms. Pearson is a lady of character. She's concerned about the least among us, the last among us, the lost among us, and the left out among us. I call her a champion of lost causes. She takes on causes everybody else walk away from and say they're hopeless. So my first reaction was, here we go again. They're picking on Olivia Pearson.
I would pretty much say the same thing. And being a journalist out here, I cover so many cities. And when I got a call to this area, and I started looking into her situation, I said to myself, it's just another move from the Secretary of State's office, a consistent pattern and practice to intimidate, suppress, control, put fear in elderly people, and to remove black elected officials from office.
Remove them from office?
Yes, it goes that far, yes.
Talk to me about race relations in Coffee County. At No Douglas, according to Ms. Pearson, is about 50-50. 50% white, 50% African American. It's about 4-1 in the county. What are race relations like in this area?
I came here in 1999 after living in Anderson, Indiana for 26 years. And I purchased a home in a white neighborhood that was listed for $108,000. The owner found out I was black. He raised the house price to $150,000. Well, that same house in Indiana would have cost me $450,000, which I couldn't have afforded. So I told him I'll buy it. And it was in an exclusively white area. I applied for my loan. Loan went through. On the day of closing, I guess some of the neighbors complained, and the gentleman tried to renege on selling me the house. I threatened to sue him, and the loan went through. Anderson, Douglas, Georgia is a segregated area. Blacks stay on the black side of town, whites stay on the white side of town. Even blacks here who had money to live in an exclusive area were probably afraid to do so.
And how long ago was that?
1999. Tina, and I remember it like it was yesterday.
What are your thoughts on race relations in this area?
Well, it just depends. Like, Brockton, for the most part, I think it's pretty good. I came from Fitzgerald, Georgia. That's been here in Canada. I came here after I got out of service. I had some good experiences down here. My wife did too. Now, some places it's sort of rough and some people rough, but there are a lot of good people around here. And I think probably the most trouble we have with is the power structure. See, some years ago we had an election, and this was another attempt at annexation for the city of Douglas. Well, we had a coalition at the time of white folk outside of the city who didn't want to be bothered with the city, and they sort of joined with it. And that's why there was no annexation in Sacramento. So it just depends. It just depends.
You don't know what city in the county you're in, or?
It depends on the issues and all that good stuff. I mean, I couldn't say Coffee County altogether was a bunch of races one way or another. No, you got a lot of good people down here. That's what made me want to live down here. You got some tough ones too.
Well, I'm not from here, so all I can speak as a member of the press, I was called here way before this ever started, with putting a noose around the black individual's neck and the school system, and even including with the Douglas 9 Enterprise, the way they mistreated her. And so I'd rather not comment on that, but I would just say for the reasons I called here as a member of the press was to report on some of the race issues.
So as a journalist here, you've reported on some race issues?
Oh yes, several, yes.
Do you think the charges brought against Ms. Pearson were racially motivated? Do you think race played a part in her charges?
Absolutely. I think not only did race play a part, they were trying to show the community that if we can bring Ms. Pearson down, we can bring anyone down. If she would have been found guilty of those charges, the average black person in this town would be afraid to walk by the polls, let alone vote in the polls. And the one witness who testified basically says she looked confused. Ms. Pearson came over and just pointed in the direction of where she stuck the card, and that was it. If they could have found her guilty of that, I would have been afraid to even walk by the polling place.
Do you think it played a part? Do you think?
Let's go back to the power structure.
Yeah.
There's a struggle here concerning power and who has it. Yeah, they were after the living. Yes, she was black, and if they could have gotten rid of her, they had a better time, an easier time doing what they wanted to do. Yeah, and there was a poll conducted by her attorneys. They hired a professional to come down here, and they talked to white and black. The results showed that most of the white people they talked to thought she was a bad person, basically couldn't be trusted. Just opposite with black folks.
So how do you interpret that?
There's a problem with somebody. There's a problem. So we can say, yeah, it's racist. We can say that. But I tend to point at the power structure, just like our president right now. The United States is not like him. As a whole, it's not. But that person's got a problem, and he's got some folks supporting him. And even people in his own party, they're afraid of him because of that.
Going straight to Olivia Coley Pearson situation rather than some of the other cases and incidents I followed up on, is that during her case, I put in my request to be in the courtroom as I under Rule 22. I've been all the way in the courtroom, all the way across the state up to Georgia Court of Appeals. And I had more problems getting into the courtroom here in Coffee County than any city or county I've ever been in. And when I put my request in, he let me record the first case, but I couldn't use it. The second case, they totally ignored me, said they never got it. In fact, the first one, they said they never got it. the request. And eventually, when I showed him and I had a copy of it, he did allow me to record it, but I couldn't put it up. And so I feel like that in itself also was dealing with race, not to mention her second case. Her second case, he pretty near told me, shut me down. He said he didn't get it. And he did it to embarrass me. I'm talking about Judge Andrew Spider now. And so to make a short form, not taking much time, yes, it's definitely about race. And it's no different from any of these other cities and counties that I have covered. I've covered. And in 2018, to be a retired military general, it hurts me to the core.
Why should people in Atlanta care about Mrs. Pearson's case?
Because she is a champion and a community leader, an elected official, and she's not an Uncle Tom. She's not afraid. She's right out of that tradition of Fannie Lou Hamer, but she's Olivia Pearson and she's original. If we can silence her voice, then there's no hope for any young person who aspire to run for governor, such as the young lady who's running for the governor of our state.
When it comes to like voter intimidation, do you think what happened to Ms. Pearson will influence voter intimidation at the polls for minority voters?
Yes.
Why?
Because she's a commissioner, for one, and she's passionate about issues that concern her. So if you get her being in the position she's in, it tends to silence others.
But how do you think that interprets to people not going to the polls? Help me understand, why would someone, I'm trying to put in perspective again why people in Atlanta should care. If what happened to Ms. Pearson is bad for minority voters, a minority trying to get into elected officials, help me understand why that is.
Well, let me say it another way. If you can get a person of her caliber in her position, you can get anybody. Anybody. Olivia has a world-class education, and she don't have to kiss anybody behind her. She speaks truth to power, and she's a person for the people. That's why they call on her, because they can get something done, especially if it needs to be done. That's why they call on her.
Not only that, she was born and raised here. Her mother was a fighter for the average citizen in Coffee County. And when you read the article, they basically say she was charged with trying to help someone who was going through the voting process. But if she could have gone to prison for that, I guarantee you could serve all the hot dogs, the hamburgers, the Coca-Colas in the world. People wouldn't have gone to the polls ever again in this county if she would have been found guilty, in my judgment.
It would have been that afraid to go.
Absolutely. In fact, I would have started voting absentee.
Let me give a shot at it. Here's how it should be of interest to the people in Atlanta. The 25 cities that I'm working, without exception, the Madison, Florida 9, they brought up the most respected people in that city on voter fraud charges. The Quitman 10+2, they brought up the most respected people. Dr. Nancy Denner had a doctorate degree. She's now, after all this, they removed her from the Board of Education. She's now the mayor of that city. Another lady, Diane Thomas, was one of the Quitman 10 they brought up on voter fraud charges. She's now on the Board of Education. And Lou Trotman as well. In Meigs, it's the same thing. Lumpkin, every community, and above all, but Mary Ann Whipperloo in Gordon, her whole family is the most respected black family in that community. She was elected mayor, then they attacked her. So the state of Georgia, the Secretary of State's office, should be concerned when you have 84 to 92-year-olds saying they will never ever vote again because of the way the Secretary of State investigators, Georgia Bureau investigators came into the community with guns and intimidated elderly folk to a degree that they had never seen before. So this is why the state of Georgia, the state leaders, if not the federal level, should be concerned about what is going on throughout the state of Georgia.
Anything else that you can think of? Go ahead.
I got a comment, a particular comment, and you really wouldn't expect it from educated people. When they had a hung jury on Olivia's case, and it came out, the former of the jury, you know, he brought up some issues. He was more than passionate about it. And matter of fact, I think he sort of kind of showed his hand. Now, there was one person that stood fast and believed what she believed. We found out what she believed after the trial was over. He was vexed. This person was a doctor of chiropractic. He wanted the judge, in his opinion, to throw her off the jury because the rest of them were gathered on it and she was holding out back, and he just went on. You know, he didn't even know the law, but they're running his mouth. Yeah, he was passionate, and he's part of the structure. Yeah, he wanted her gone, but that's not the law. So a lot of people are passionate about stuff. It's got nothing to do with the law. And let me show you something else concerning Olivia. We were, the last election, we were sitting over there at the podium. She had a little station there. She was talking to people as they come out. I was talking to people as they come out. And there was some Donald Trump people who came over there. Oh, they were white. Wasn't friendly. Wanted to take the sign that we had. You know. And they looked like somebody who were packing, you know? Yeah. They weren't there to be friendly, and I hope you vote for the same person I did, and I hope we win and everything be all right. Nothing like that. Intimidating. It was ugly. You know what I'm saying? But I knew what was going on. And I held my peace. But I know what the problem was. I know what the intention was. And yeah, you got some folk like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you can think of?
Yes, Alex, you remember in 2010, Shirley Sherrod, who was over the Department of Agriculture for the state of Georgia, she spoke at the NAACP banquet. Olivia Pearson was there, Mr. Presley was there, probably didn't have 50 people in attendance. They doctored the tape, and that lady was fired by the Secretary of Agriculture. Ms. Pearson stood up for her, and Presley stood up for her, I did. We were on national television in this little town, and if it weren't for us telling the truth, that lady would still have been fired.
Can you remind me? I vaguely remember.
This was the town,
Yeah.
Shirley Sherrod. She came to speak at the NAACP banquet.
Yeah.
And it was more than 50 people there.
What did she say? What did they doctor it to say?
She told a joke about how she had helped this white farmer, and they doctored the tape to make her look like a racist, like she didn't want to help white folks.
Oh.
Yeah. And they fired.
Who doctored it?
Breitbart News, and the Secretary of Agriculture, Millsap, fired her.
Did she ever get a job there?
What she did was she chose not to go back, and I think they settled. But that happened in this little town. They came all over, found a way to get those tapes, doctored them up to make her look like a racist, and she was actually fired. And Shirley said, "Look at the tape." We went on national news and told the truth. Olivia, our president, myself, and others.
They were sent a copy of the tape.
Yes.
Okay. And let me show you something else that's tragic about that. That Friday before we had the banquet, she went to Pearson, Georgia. That's Atkinson County. One of the poorest places around here. She talked to the mayor and a whole bunch of folks. She told them that they were entitled to a lot that USDA had to offer, and she was going to help them get it. Now, that's the tragic part about that. Yeah, she was there, I was there, there was a lot of folks there. And she told them that she was intending to help them get it. Now, yeah.
Sure, Fox News ate that up.
July 2010, this little town. But we stood up for what was right. Save Shirley Sherrod, and we stood up for what was right when they tried to railroad Olivia Pearson.
Thank you. You guys did a great job. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come and briefly chat with us. Really doing it.
I mean, was it that man?
I thank you, man. I thank you.
How many of them think that? I thought it was about 50.
I just need a couple extra pictures.
Cut that out. Cut that one. Cut that number out.
Y'all did a great job.
Yeah, that was terrible.
No, Alex. Shirley Sherrod came here and they fired her.
That was here in Douglas.
Andy. They fired her.
Here in Douglas.
Yeah, here in Douglas.
But you're in NAACP meeting?
At our banquet. Freedom banquet. The biggest event went.
Who took the video and
Johnny Wilkerson.
And Breitbart somehow purchased a copy of it from him.
who's this Johnny person?
He does the video for the city of Douglas, our city council meetings.
They'll put you in touch with her if you want to get a copy of it.
And she was fired. They doctored it up and they fired her. And she kept saying, look at the tape.
Or was it just on YouTube and he just took it off? I guess sometimes.
No.
It airs on TV around here.
Yeah, it airs on the local channel.
Yeah. So nothing's hid. We air
Right.
We air every one.
But they
I
spliced
think she
it.
made a joke that this white farmer came to her and that something that she could have said, I'm not going to help this white guy, but then she said, but of course I was going to.
And they took it out of context. Anderson Cooper. Anderson Cooper.
CNN. It was CNN.
In fact,
Somebody else
yeah.
chewing the barrel too.
Yeah.
But they came to her defense because they knew who she was and what she did.
Yes. And we went to the courtroom and stood with Miss Pearson, and there were a lot of blacks in this town afraid to outwardly support her.
Yes, that's
I
true.
guess they scared to lose
Are you
the job
afraid
at
you'll
the
be
chicken
next?
plant or the peanut. Well, you got a chicken plant here, peanut plant. What else?
DCC.
DCC.
Yes, sir.
Mark Loudon Brown is an attorney for the Southern Center for Human Rights and represented Coley Pearson.
I don't know what the motive was, but it certainly, as an outsider, makes you think they're trying to send a message to people of color.
So you can win this election?